We welcome Jordan Bice to the show. Good to see you again.
Yeah, absolutely. Good to see you as well. Thanks for having me.
How was your weekend?
It was great. Smoked a brisket, watched about 20 hours of college football, hung out with friends.
Which game did you enjoy the most?
Ooh, I would say Auburn, Oregon. Definitely a nail biter, only ranked game. It was solid.
SEC. All right, let's jump in with our icebreaker question. What is your favorite superpower?
Yeah, so I would say ability to read minds. I know it's probably a common answer on the show, but for me, in the career that I'm in, if I could, sit across from someone and know what they're thinking and how they're receiving what I'm talking to them about, I think I would be the best fundraiser in the world if I knew exactly what was going on inside their head there.
Give us 60 seconds on your road to Mays. I mean, you've been sort of all over Aggieland in a variety of venues and positions. Talk to us a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, so this is actually my third time around here in Mays. So went here in undergrad, did a management degree, class of 2012. Was born and raised in Austin and a fourth generation Aggie. So it wasn't a hard choice to come here in the first place. Graduated and moved back to Austin and worked for a group called Legends Global Sales that we helped do business development work for the Formula One racetrack in Austin, and then transitioned to 12th Man Foundation and was part of the redevelopment of Kyle Field team. Oh. When that completed, joined the MBA program at Mays for the second go around, finished that, and was most recently assistant athletic director at Texas State. And my wife had stayed in College Station working for the 12th Man Foundation. That's where we had met. And so when an opportunity came around to come back to Mays for the third time and be a part of the development team with the Texas A&M Foundation, it was a no-brainer for me.
We'll talk a little bit about your development work with the college and then at the university level, however that all kind of plays together. But first, let's get into what we call the Mike Alexander questions. You talked a little bit about where you grew up, but where did you grow up? Yeah,
so I was born and raised in Southwest Austin. Loved living there. Lived right on the creek bed, could go down and swim and hang out at Barton Springs and Barton Creek, and really loved growing up there.
What high school did you go to?
I went to Austin High, so we're the oldest high school west of the Mississippi, public high school west of the Mississippi. The Fighting Maroons was our mascot, and it was a great place to go to high school because you were right downtown, could skip class and go to Zilker Park and have fun.
I went to A&M Consolidated, which is the oldest public high school between Holloman and 2818.
There you go.
But yours is a little older. How many in your family?
So I'm the youngest of four, all Aggies. My sister was in vet school. I had a brother in industrial distribution and an architect. And so I was the black sheep that went to Mays and did business school. But youngest of four. We're all 3 years apart.
Okay. What was your first job?
My first job was with the Round Arc Express, the AAA baseball team north of Austin.
Yeah.
Just kind of as a young kid, I wanted to get into sports and emailed and called Nolan Ryan's son and some other people up in the front office there and worked my way into being in the control room, running the scoreboard and the video board for the Round Arc Express for about 5 years through high school and college.
What was the most fun part of that? What was the least fun part of that? Tell us a little bit about that.
The least fun part of it is when you have to be paid to work 82 baseball games, it becomes a complete grind. Especially during that time, the Astros organization wasn't great and there was a lot of losing. And so you were stuck watching 9 innings of bad baseball. The best part of that was you'd see the major league players come through. And so I remember one game we had Roger Clemens come in the midst of his comeback from his Hall of Fame career.
Right.
And so it was, a huge crowd and kind of being a part of true professional sports and seeing all the families out there enjoying that was awesome.
Roger Clemens.
Yeah.
That's a complicated legacy.
Absolutely. If you would have come clean, probably would have been all right.
I'm getting electroshocked by the producers right now. What was your greatest challenge as a child?
I would say perfectionism and comparison to others. I think being the youngest, that's a natural thing. You're always looking up to your siblings, and in class, everyone compares you to, how smart your sister was or how athletic your brother was. And I think kind of comparing yourself to them and trying to live up to that standard to some degree, it's a good thing. I think it pushes you forward, but I would say that was my biggest challenge. I never had anything huge or major in my life, but just, comparison and being comfortable with yourself.
How did you move past that?
I think it's something that has continually driven me to be competitive. I love playing sports. I'm always my biggest critic. And so wouldn't say it's something that you necessarily ever get past, but it shapes who you are. And I think over time, as you mature, you become comfortable in a situation that you're good enough is enough. And, you're not comparing yourself to anybody else, internally or externally.
So in one way you leaned into it a little bit, and in another way you sort of reoriented toward it, maybe?
Yeah, I think so.
Is that a fair way to describe it?
Yeah.
What did your parents, family, and include siblings here? You talked a little bit about this a moment ago, but parents, family do for a living. How did that impact you?
Yeah. So my family is, basically from my grandparents and great grandparents back have been civil servants. So professors, firefighters, military, doctors, teachers, really my entire family has been in one of those fields. And so my parents, my mom stayed at home a lot of times, but she was also a substitute teacher and was always very involved in, PTA and our schools and, getting the community involved in that. My dad worked for the fire department and was an engineer and is also on the Texas Task Force 1. And so going to things like the hurricanes and, flooding around Texas, their team went to 9/11, things like that. And like I said, grandfathers were doctors and career military. And so I think that idea of serving others has always been very important for me and all of my siblings. Like I said, one is a veterinarian in Austin, one's a firefighter, and one's an architect. And I think all those things are, really important to our society and keeping people safe and healthy.
Beautiful. Let's talk about College Station a bit.
Yeah.
Some people who live in bigger cities enjoy taking unprovoked shots at smaller cities in middle America, like here or Tulsa or Sioux Falls.
Yeah.
I kind of like living in a community this size. No city's perfect. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, absolutely. I've lived here for about 10 years of my life so far. I mean, I love Aggieland. I love Bryan College Station. My mom was born and raised here, so I still have a lot of family in Bryan College Station. I think growing up, it always had this very nostalgic feel for me where I always loved coming here, and it just felt kind of like a second home in a lot of ways. So I think that factors in for me personally, but outside of the family ties, I think it's a great community. I mean, obviously Austin has a lot to offer, and I think it's one of my favorite places in the world because of the live music and the outdoors and things that you can do there. But when it comes to a town like this, I think you really look at the people, and that's what makes a difference. For me, I go out with my wife to a bar or a restaurant, and it's rare that we walk in and we don't recognize someone that we know. And I think people are just very genuine. There's not a lot of glitz and glamour with the people. They're very down to earth, and I really enjoy that aspect. And the community itself has grown to a place now that you have everything that you could want. I mean, every restaurant, every entertainment aspect. I mean, outside of maybe a Freshwater Creek, I think it's a pretty great place.
Not the thing I would have come up with, but now that you've said it, we're about the same size. Bryan College Station as a community is about the same size that Austin was in 1960. These guys have heard me say that before, but I feel like we're just kind of in the beginning few years of a really great period in the overall life of a city.
Yeah.
If you could change one thing, what would you change? Freshwater Creek?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the natural resources, from an entertainment perspective, there's not the lakes and the rivers and the creeks that I kind of grew up with and that I love swimming in and hanging out at.
Right.
I think if I could change one thing, it'd be a little bit more vibrant music scene. And I think it's definitely improving. You go to downtown Bryan, there's definitely still the kind of the prototypical country places, and I love Texas country music that still are selling out places. But I think a more vibrant music scene would do a lot to kind of get the younger professional to stay, probably. Just something a little bit different, maybe a little bit more edgy than what I think the perception of College Station in Bryan typically is. But there's a lot of great music venues in town that are starting to bring in those acts that are traveling between Houston and Austin, and they might not be, the arena filler, but hey, if you get 200 or 300 people, young people in a crowd, it's a fun time, and it's something that I really enjoy, and I think a lot of other people would as well.
It's interesting because we've always had Northgate, and then we've had downtown Bryan, and even more recently we have kind of the Century Square area, and I think it'll be fascinating to see how young professionals respond to all of that. Yeah,
absolutely. I think there's a misconception a lot of times that you stay here and you're going to be swallowed up by college students all the time, and I don't feel that at all. I don't I don't go to Northgate that often, but we'll go and have a drink.
Speak for yourself, my friend.
We'll go have a drink or dinner or something like that. And I feel like a lot of times we're one of the younger people in the rooms.
Fair enough. What does it mean to be an ambassador for, the question is written as for Texas A&M, but really more broadly, what does it mean to you to be an ambassador for anything?
Yeah, I think it's a representative. Just like you would be ambassador for the United States of America, you're a representative and a diplomat essentially representing the country. And I feel like it's the same thing in my role for the university. It's going out and working with people and sharing the vision, listening to what their concerns are about the future, living out the core values of Texas A&M, and ultimately getting people back connected. I think we're in a really fun spot as development officers for Texas A&M and the A&M Foundation, because that's out of, I think, people's friends, their family, and their faith. I don't think there's anything more important than their university. A lot of times that's such an important part of who that person becomes. And so as an ambassador, we get to really touch on that and share that vision with them as far as where we're going, where we've been, and why this institution is such a treasure for America.
It's true, because if you look at, for example, sports fandom, which teams do people follow? I find that among people, especially people who did go to college, oftentimes the teams that they are most loyal to are their college teams.
Absolutely.
And I don't know what it is about that, but I think the timing is important of when college falls in our lives. It's sort of the end of our formative years and the beginning of adulthood sort of at the same time, I guess, for a lot of people. Maybe for some people that boundary falls in a slightly different place, but there is something kind of magic
absolutely
about college, maybe graduate school. What does that mean to you then?
Yeah, I think you touched on it, that it's such a transformative time for people in their lives, that they're here.
That's a good word.
You're becoming an adult. You're out on your own for the first time, but your mind is also being filled with so much, so many educational opportunities, so many networking opportunities. And I think what's really special about A&M is the traditional aspect of it, that you are on a square campus essentially. You've got all these student organizations. You've got a great sports program in place, and really there's a lot of traditions in place that really help mesh the past with the present. Things like Howdy and 12th Man and all these symbols that we have at Texas A&M, I think really help make our Aggie network and make our alumni what they are today, where they continually have this love and this dire trust in the university to this day. Even if they graduated in the 50s, 60s, or yesterday, they're still going to wear the shirt. They're still going to kind of breed their kids to love A&M and live A&M and live out the values of A&M. And so I think it's just kind of that breeding ground and everything that we represent that allows us to share that with others.
It's funny how, exactly as you say, the university logo, there's so much connotation to that you think of leadership, you think of selfless service, all of the integrity, all those things, braverism. Now, so when I looked at your LinkedIn and as we were doing our research before the show, you are the director of development for the whole university?
No. So the way Texas A&M Foundation sets up is we have multiple directors of development. So basically we all have schools that we're responsible for, or special interests. And so for me, I'm the director of development of the Mays Business School. So we represent the university in a lot of ways, but really what our priorities are, or what Dean Jones's priorities are. And we go out and work with our former students and benefactors and really share that vision as far as where our needs are and how they can hopefully support that if their philanthropic interests are aligned with that.
What advice would you give an individual who has also been inspired by the mission and wanted to do more to give back to the university financially? Plug some of the options.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a lot, and we're fortunate to be in the case where the university is constantly moving forward and progressing. I think first off, what I would suggest to someone like that is be open to it. People have all sorts of philanthropic interests that they can give their money. I'm a big believer in Andrew Carnegie's Gospel of Wealth, where he basically says that people who do have a surplus of wealth kind of owe it to society to give it back. They can either give it to their families, Uncle Sam, or philanthropic interests. And so if you're considering those things, I would say reach out to us at the A&M Foundation and talk to us about what our options are. Here within the Mays Business School, really, we focus on three things, and that's the people, the place, and the programs. And so for us, the people are obviously our students. I'm a scholarship recipient. I wouldn't be able to get out of school debt-free without that. And so I'm able to share that story with people. But that's really a big focus. That's what a lot of people like to support is the future generations, the economic health of Texas, making sure that people get good degrees and don't have debt and can provide for their families. The people also includes our faculty and staff. We've got great researchers, great professors, great lecturers. So it's creating chairs and things like that can help further the educational experience of those students. When it comes to programs, it's things like the MBA program, our commercial banking program, Aggies on Wall Street, business honors. And so there's all sorts of programs that we have within Mays Business School if they want to support kind of an extracurricular or a experiential learning space. And then last but certainly not least is the place. That's our number one focus right now in the development office for Mays Business. Coming from an athletics background where everything was focused on facilities, you had to get the biggest and the brightest football stadium or basketball facility. It's really no different in academics as far as facilities being extremely important, because just like you want to be able to recruit the best football coaches, get Jimbo on campus, get the best recruits on campus, get all the 5-star athletes, it's no different here in Mays Business School, where if we want to get the best professors and the best researchers and the National Merit Scholars, we have to have a facility that reflects the professionalism and the beauty that is our school. And so right now we're raising, basically, we're funding a $66 million project to expand Wayner by 75,000 square feet. And so it's an instrumental project for us right now to really gain a lot of collaborative workspaces, gain more experiential classrooms. So we're not going in and sitting in a 100-person auditorium, but we're sitting around a small table like this, and our students can experience a similar setting to what they will in the business space, where they're working cross-functionally with a team and there's technology in the room for them to interact around the globe.
Contact the Texas A&M Foundation today at 979-555-JIMBO. And finally, what advice would you give to a student who wanted to be a more impactful ambassador? We talked about being an ambassador. Yeah. What sorts of things do you think about, and would you encourage others to think about in terms of making their contribution to Texas A&M's legacy mean as much as it can?
Yeah, I would say first off, get involved. Make those experiences, make those connections, create those emotional ties to your university, your program, your class. That way, when you go out in the world, you're able to share that with other people, and you still have that tie 30, 40 years from now when you're thinking about your legacy. It's relating back to those experiences you had when you were in school. And so I think every student that we have is an ambassador for our university. You look at when a prospective student and their parents come on campus, students saying howdy to them, students showing up and being a vibrant member of the 12th Man in the stands. That's often the window that someone looks at to see A&M for the first time. When they're touring classes and they see students that are actively learning and they're not just sleeping in class. That is a true reflection of what it means to be a student. I think it's important to realize that you're an ambassador, as you're interviewing for jobs, as you're networking with other Aggies, that you're a reflection of the current student body, and that you've got to hold yourself to a standard that everyone has set before you as you go out and you're involved professionally in the community, all those things.
Good words. What does the day-to-day look like for the director of development at Mays Business School? So
I think there's a lot of times people think that I'm in sales, and to some degree I am. I think the day-to-day is very similar as far as prospecting and cultivating relationships and ultimately soliciting people in a respectful manner based on their interests and passions. But I really look at development and fundraising in a different way, because it's a lot more long-term and relationship-based. A lot of people, aren't coming in and stroking $1 million check. I think there's a misconception.
What?
There's a misconception about Texas A&M Foundation that maybe, I don't have that type of money to support A&M's endowment or a building or things like that.
Right.
But in reality, we're going out and working with people who are giving $5,000 over 5 years to create an endowment in their name or in a memorial fund that's going to help a student. And so the day to day, it's really going out on the road, and we all kind of have communities that we work with. I'm primarily in Austin and San Antonio. So it's meeting with our former students in the Mays Business School and kind of sharing what our projects are, where our needs are, and learning more about them, really. It's not, I feel like I'm not doing my job if I'm pitching to someone. Really, I'm trying to listen to what they're interested in, what was their college experience like, what do they support philanthropically currently, and then trying to find kind of a meshing point that they're going to find value in.
How often do you shift gears in the way that either you approach your job or what you bring back to the business school to say, hey, this is what's out there?
Yeah.
Based on something that you heard out in the field? Like, how often do you push things in a different direction based on something someone told you?
Yeah, I don't think we talk a lot about a university structure in Mays Business School. It's like a aircraft carrier. You can't necessarily steer it and move and be completely nimble. Obviously, there's a structure in place and curriculum in place that is there. I think what we're able to do a lot of times is we're able to find former students that are very successful in their careers and also have a lot of advice that they're able to give current students. Mm-hmm. And we build those relationships with those individuals, and then we're able to make that connection to get them back in the classroom or back in a small setting with our students so that they can really share that knowledge firsthand. We're in the relationships business at the end of the day, and so we build those relationships, and hopefully they either provide resources or they provide expertise and time to our current students to help further their educational experience.
When you think about this person should come to campus, or we should FaceTime them into a classroom, or we should bring them to a meeting or some such like that to tell their story, what markers do you look for?
I think it's a variety of things. It's one, are they living their life to our core values? Do they have life experience outside of just strictly their business and their professional success?
Sure.
Secondly, is their professional success and their career arc relatable to our students and their pursuits and their interests? If someone is in an industry that we have never placed a graduate in, they might not be the best person to get them in a classroom. But if we have someone who is a partner at a Big Four accounting firm that has a lot of life experience, has a lot of leadership experience, that might be a good person to go put in front of an accounting class for, something like that. So it's really looking at that mesh of professional success, life success. Obviously being very relatable and a good communicator is important too, because you don't want to get someone who's dull and not necessarily a vibrant person to get in front of a class of 18 to 22-year-olds.
I don't know what you mean by that. What's the best story that you've heard?
Oh, that's a tough one. I had a meeting in Austin actually this past month with a gentleman who helped get together a group. And we don't really do a lot of group funding. Typically, we work with individuals and families and foundations to do a lot of the gifts for the A&M Foundation. But this individual was part of the Capital City A&M Club and got together a group where his kids went to high school at Vandergrift High School to create a scholarship in honor of Matthew Vandergrift, who was a Mays graduate, served his country and lost his life in the line of duty. And what this community really came together to do was look at what was important to Matthew's life and honoring him to help Mays students. And so they got together and created a sizable endowment. And not only does Matthew have a high school named after him, but now he has a scholarship that's supporting graduates from his high school here at Mays. And I think just hearing that story of one, a tragic, but also a selfless service life, but how they have now, that high school has adopted a lot of the Texas A&M traditions. So they have a Valor Day, essentially. I believe that's what it's called, Valor Day. Mm-hmm. To honor his life. He actually passed away on April 21st on muster. Mm. And so they have a day that's basically similar to muster, where they honor the life of their students and their namesake and award the scholarship basically for a business honor student. And so that to me just really encapsulates everything that A&M represents in one story, one scholarship, one life. Mm.
Well, thanks to Matthew and to that whole crew. That's meaningful stuff. What do you think, for someone who's considering getting into development, for example, what do you think? Obviously, being able to talk to people, being able to cultivate relationships is paramount to that process. What do you think makes you good at it?
I go back to the early childhood, being the youngest. You're always kind of fighting for attention. You're an extrovert. You're used to building relationships and connecting with people. And so I think from an early age, I've kind of had that skill set and kind of found that I'm able to build networks with people and connect with people and read people as well fairly well. And so I think from a skill set perspective, I look at really my strengths in that of being able to communicate, being well organized. I know in Maze, we talk a lot about our strengths finder and what are your core strengths and how can you use that in your career. And I've always looked back and leaned on that in my career now in fundraising. My top 5 are a communicator, shocking, an includer, a contextualizer, and a wooer.
That's the one I was waiting for.
The wooer.
Yep.
And a competitor. And so all of those are really important to my professional success and ultimately our team's success within the development office for Maze, because you've got to be able to communicate, you've got to be able to concise, you've got to include and network and get people to the table. You've got to contextualize where we've been in the past and where we're going in the future. And then the wooer, I think, is kind of that more salesy, I guess, to some degree. You're an influencer. You're able to, my understanding at least, you're able to kind of push people in a certain direction based on your ability to kind of tug at their emotions and connect with them individually.
Do you ever find, woo is one of my strengths as well. Do you ever find that you are giving up too much in the process of finding common ground? I love finding common ground, and sometimes I feel that emotionally I compromise too much in order to find harmony. Is that a problem for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think my wife would definitely agree with that. We'll go out in public and I'm trying to find commonalities with people, or saying something that is off topic, but it's my way of connecting with that person. It's something I think at times I've had to kind of turn down the volume a little bit on in one-on-one meetings when I'm out in the field fundraising with people, because it is important to make that connection. But obviously we're there to visit with them, not necessarily share your story and make every connection that you possibly have.
Share time. Talk about something you've been enjoying lately. Three things you've been doing in your spare time, a book you've liked. Share something with us.
I'll share. I should be paid by Spotify. I love Spotify. And so it's something I'm enjoying right now, and something that I enjoy always is Spotify. I think I listened to 42 days worth of music last year, and I listen to music all day when I'm working. I obviously travel quite a bit to visit with our donors. I'm always listening to podcasts like this and music. And so I think to be able to have music at your fingertips is a great thing, and the world would be a lot happier if they always had something positive playing in their ear.
I like it. Rapid fire. What do you consider your most valuable failure?
Yeah, it's something that I don't think most people would consider a failure, and it's something that I thought was a huge achievement when it was taking place. But I actually graduated from Maze in 3 years, my undergrad, and looking back on that, I think it ended up being a huge failure because I missed out on some of those opportunities I just discussed about connecting with other people and really enjoying the moment. But it's taught me, kind of coming from that you shouldn't rush through life. Enjoy it while you can, and take the time to really learn and suck it all in. I
was going to laugh to myself if you said, I graduated in 3 years. I was really hoping to make it in 2.25 years, but just couldn't quite get there.
No.
What do you think is people's biggest misconception of you?
I think it's a common misconception of really a lot of millennials or younger professionals. And that's,
okay.
You walk into a room, a lot of times I'm meeting with older people and they kind of say, oh, is this your first job out of college? And I think it's, a lot of times there's a misconception that because you're young and you look like you're 18, that you don't know what you're talking about, you can't relate, and you don't have that professional experience necessarily. So that's a common one I face, and talking to peers that they see a lot internally and externally in their jobs.
Even if it were your first job out of college, I do find, and occasionally I do this myself as I get a little bit older, we underestimate young people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Young people are smart.
Yeah.
Young people have really good ideas, and I'm not applying that to you. I mean, obviously you've been around a fair bit, but regardless, I think one of the most important things we can do as we, age into sort of mature adulthood, or whatever phrase you want to use, is empower young people.
Yeah.
And help them find ways to, make their dreams come true and give back to the world.
Absolutely.
On that note, if you could have anyone as a mentor for one day, who would it be?
Yeah, so I'm a big believer that you should have a lot of mentors in every aspect of your life. For your short-term career, long-term career, love life, friend life, all that. You should have a mentor for it.
Huh.
For me, one of my favorite books is Man's Search for Meaning, written by Viktor Frankl. And so I would go with Viktor Frankl. He was an individual who's a clinical psychologist who went through the Holocaust and spent years at Auschwitz. And his whole idea is basically that if you can find meaning in your suffering, if you know the why, you can withstand any how. And so I think that mentorship of being able to kind of understand the cross that you bear and why bad things happen and how it relates to your life moving forward would be a great person to talk with and have mentor through hard times.
That's really compelling. What did he say in terms of finding meaning in his suffering?
So really for him, going through the Holocaust, it was about basically serving and loving others through this horrendous time. And so he found meaning in helping other people in the smallest ways possible through this. And then later in life as a clinical psychologist, helping people through whatever their mental strain was and getting them to be able to accept and put things in a box to some degree and really starting with love to kind of spread positivity for their life.
Can I tell you a secret? I think that's always the answer.
Absolutely.
It's because in the end, we're dust.
Yeah.
But if you can find a way to like reach into someone's life, to reach into their heart and to elevate them in some way, then that's the purest form of meaning in any context.
Absolutely.
If you could offer our listeners a piece of business or career advice that they might not have heard before, something like, what's your one weird trick?
Yeah. So I don't remember who I heard this from originally. I know I'd heard it before, but I think I was reminded of it actually. I think it was a football coach. I don't remember who it was, but it was, you're not learning when your mouth's moving. And that's that's something that I think I try and practice more and more, that it's not always about you talking to someone else. It's about you listening and picking up on cues and learning from their life experiences or what they're telling you. I think that's an important piece for us all to remember, that maybe stop moving your mouth and open your ears a little bit.
Good. What is your fondest memory of TAMU?
It's an easy question for me. I like I said, I met my wife working at the 12th Man Foundation. We both worked there, and without a doubt, the best memory for me was we had a Kyle Field gala the night before the stadium opened, and so we got to go down onto the field after the event. We were in tuxes and nice ballroom dresses and watched Midnight Yell from the field. And I think just being able to look up and see this monstrosity that, not only had we both participated in helping fundraise, but the team really, worked so many late hours, so many days to make happen. And then to see it filled up, and to see the donors and the benefactors that really made it possible, was just an awesome experience. And it's something that has really driven me in my career to continue to find projects like that really make it worth it. And then obviously whenever you can get to share personal and a professional success with significant other, spouse, wife, whatever that is, obviously very impactful.
Anyone you would like to send some good bull?
Yeah, so I'll send it to, he'd hate for me to call him my boss. I'll call him my leader, but I want to send some good bull to Brian Bishop. He has been leading the development office for Mays Business School for about 6 years now, has been a member of the A&M Foundation for 15, and is actually moving over to the 12th Man Foundation currently. He's just done an incredible job for Mays Business School, probably averaged over $25 to $30 million a year that was being fundraised for Mays during his term here. Not only professional success, but without a doubt, the best leader I've ever had professionally. Just being able to communicate well, give us the trust and the autonomy to do our jobs. And we're certainly going to miss him, but want to give a shout out to him for a job well done and helping elevate Mays Business School to what it is today.
Good words. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I'd like to send some good bull to my old boss, Mark Cherry. His show premiered a couple of weeks ago, and it seems like it's doing pretty well. He's a good dude. Spotify influencer Jordan Buys. Thanks for
absolutely.
Thanks for coming to talk with us.
Thanks for having me.
We appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much for watching. If you would like to stay up to date on our latest videos, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon to receive notifications. If you're in a rush or on the road, you can still join us on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you find your podcasts. If you want to learn more about us or our guests, please visit our website at mays.tamu.edu/podcasts. Also, please check out Mays Business School's academic programs. They're the sponsors of our show, and you can find them in the description. Thanks,
and gig them.